You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning. It's April the 14th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at 420pace.ca and paceradio.net. Good morning, Rev Cindy. How you doing?
Good morning, Al. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Well, it's one of those mornings. I just didn't get off on the right foot, I don't think. And, things weren't the best this morning, but I am here to do the news.
We are here.
Just hopefully I make it to the end. Keep your fingers crossed. But yeah. Other than that, the weekend went well.
That's
it was
good.
Nice warm weekend, actually. It was a great weekend, weather-wise.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Yeah, we've got some nice warm weather coming.
Oh, well,
Not here right now, though.
No, not right now. All righty, what do you say we get on with the news?
Sounds good.
All right, first story's up.
Coming to us from StratCan. Police in Winnipeg targeting cannabis store customers.
Oh. Police in Winnipeg say they are targeting cannabis store customers as part of an ongoing impaired driving enforcement campaign. Between January and March of 2025, the Winnipeg Police Service Central Traffic Division launched an enforcement campaign that they say focused on drivers under the influence of cannabis and other illicit drugs.
During the campaign, officers conducted 302 traffic stops and administered 207 drug screening tests using approved screening equipment. Nearly half of those drivers, 97 of them, tested positive for recent cannabis consumption. This was similar to the rate of those tested in a similar campaign of 2024. All drivers faced an immediate roadside suspension of their license. Only one driver was said to have been charged criminally for refusing to be tested.
Officers also issued 86 provincial offense acts notices during this year's campaign, including 19 for the improper storage of cannabis within a vehicle and 4 for consuming cannabis inside a vehicle. Similar to alcohol, cannabis in a vehicle must be stored out of reach of the driver and any passengers unless it is in its original unopened packaging.
Mm-hmm. Winnipeg Police Patrol Sergeant Stephanie Fontaine said during a press conference that he focused on the campaign on areas around the more than 100 cannabis stores in Winnipeg. There are over 130 or so dispensaries throughout the city of Winnipeg. So what I did was I made a plan to basically target those areas where the dispensaries, where there's dispensaries, and we watch the traffic coming to and from those known shops, Fontaine said. The officers still have to form the proper grounds to make all of their lawful demands, but that's where they spent their time.
You also know that many of these individuals were testing positive on the way to a cannabis store, although he did not indicate how officers knew their destination. True. Fontaine added that most drivers who tested positive for THC were found between 3 and 6 p.m., which he notes is different from enforcement against those impaired by alcohol.
Police in Winnipeg recommend not driving for 12 hours after consuming edible cannabis products. Penalties for driving while impaired by cannabis can include criminal charges, loss of one's driver's license, vehicle impoundment, and fines. Police can use both oral testing equipment and assessments by drug recognition officers.
In Canada, drivers with over 2 nanograms of THC but under 5 nanograms of THC per milliliter of blood can face a straight summary conviction offense. Drivers found with over 5 nanograms of THC in their blood can face a drug-alone hybrid offense.
I'm that in the morning when I wake up and haven't had anything for 10 hours.
Yeah, I agree.
The penalty for the summary conviction offense is a maximum fine of $1,000. The penalties for the 2 hybrid offenses are the same as for alcohol impaired driving. These include mandatory minimum penalties of $1,000 for the first time, 30 days imprisonment for the second, and 120 days imprisonment for the third.
I had somebody on Facebook trying to tell me that Canada does not have any mandatory minimum penalties.
Yeah.
I went, huh?
Yeah, sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. All righty. From there, we'll move on to the next story. And I'm just getting it all set up. Make sure I get the right one, because you know how that is. Sometimes you don't want to bring up the wrong story that you're about to announce. So here we go.
I've done that before. Yeah. Coming to us from SciTech Daily, from cravings to calm, cannabis sparks a new era in addiction recovery.
It sure has. But just, they say here, well, a Canadian pilot, now it's a Canadian pilot study, explored how supervised cannabis use in recovery homes might support individuals overcoming substance use disorders. They say participants found it helped ease pain, anxiety, depression, and sleep issues, factors that derail recovery. Reported benefits include reduced cravings for opioids and improved mental health. Despite these promising outcomes, stigma around cannabis use persists, particularly among staff, signaling a need for targeted education.
Absolutely. A new pilot study from the UBC Okanagan and Thompson River University explore the effects of medically supervised cannabis use in residential recovery setting for people undergoing treatment for substance use. Participants reported that cannabis helped them manage pain, anxiety, depression, sleep, which are common symptoms that can make recovery much more challenging.
Yeah, Dr. Zach Walsh, he's a psychology professor at UBC. He says our findings suggest medical cannabis could play a meaningful role in reducing cravings and improving retention and recovery programs. Participants clearly indicated benefits in managing both physical and psychological challenges during recovery.
Yeah. Users also reported reduced cravings for opiates and other harmful substances, improved pain management, and enhanced mental health and sleep quality. However, stigma surrounding cannabis use remains a significant barrier, according to the research.
Staff interviews revealed a need for increased education and better integration into the cannabis treatment approach. According to Florine Fear, she's the lead researcher, says that reducing stigma through the targeted education for program staff is critical.
100%. Staff skepticism often comes from misunderstandings about cannabis and as a legitimate medical treatment, highlighting a clear opportunity for improvement in recovery support. This study, recently published in the Journal of Studies on Alcohol and Drugs, was conducted by researchers from UBC Okanagan and Thompson River University.
This collaboration between institutions in Kelowna and Kamloops sought to better understand patient and staff experiences with medically supervised cannabis use in a supportive recovery environment. It examined patient and staff experiences at Maverick's Supportive Recovery, a residential recovery center in the BC interior.
Yeah, Maverick is amazing. Residential recovery centers provide structured live-in environments where people receive treatment and support to manage substance use disorders. While the results are promising, researchers emphasize the need for larger scale studies to fully assess the benefits and risks of incorporating medical cannabis into substance use recovery programs. I think if they talk to anybody who has ever worked at a CSP or anything like it, they'll get all kinds of information.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the study was funded by the Interior University's Research Coalition and BC's Ministry of Health. Dr. Fear is to present the findings at the International Council of Nurses Congress in Helsinki this June. True is also planning the Medical Cannabis and Recovery Forum on or on Saturday, April the 26th. The forum is open to the public and healthcare professionals and researchers interested in cannabis and recovery solutions. There you go.
I wonder, is that being held online? This medical
That
cannabis
I
and
don't
recovery?
know.
I wonder.
We had a similar report on Thursday. There might be some information in that if you go back through the notes, and there might be something there. So, but that's good news. That just shows that the CSP programs are a benefit to the population.
They got loud enough that people were paying attention, and somebody decided to research it to make it official for the government.
Yeah.
And I think that is amazing. So, we always talk about the CSP. They are the loudest ones, but there are other organizations right across Canada that do the exact same thing. And CSP, definitely the leader. And it's just nice to see it happen. It's nice to see researchers get on board.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Next one's up.
Coming to us from Marijuana Moment, THC-infused beverage companies are recruiting 2,000 people to drink free cannabis seltzers as alternative to alcohol for a study.
If it wasn't the seltzers, I'd volunteer.
Yeah.
A group of THC-infused beverage brands is looking for hundreds of adults to participate in what's described as an observational research study around cannabis-infused drinks, alcohol consumption, mood, and quality of life. The team is currently recruiting up to 2,000 qualified participants who would receive a free supply of cannabis-infused beverages. Participants would be expected to record the alcohol and cannabis-infused drinking patterns on a daily basis, as well as complete the self-assessments about their overall quality of life.
The 3-week study period will involve a week of feedback without the beverages. Participants would then consume the infused drinks over the final 2 weeks of the program. The industry study was announced on Thursday by More Better, a data collecting and research firm. It's sponsored by multiple leading beverage brands, according to the press release, who are collectively supplying participants with free infused beverage products to use throughout the course of the study.
The company describes the groundbreaking research as the world's first functional beverage study aimed at exploring THC beverages as a wellness alternative to alcohol. By collecting consumer-reported outcomes from thousands of consumers over a multi-week basis, we provide brands and industry advocates with real-world data they need to understand how infused beverages are impacting consumers' quality of life, according to Tyler Dutrick, More Better's chief operating officer.
Brands backing the study include Brez, Nowadays, Cantrip, Death Row Records, Do It Fluid, Iconic Tonics, Hippie Water, Stizzy, and many others. The cannabis plant should be better researched, Cantrip CEO Adam Terry said in a release. And we are hopeful that this is just the first step in learning how these products can improve people's lives as acceptance, access, and consumption of infused beverages expands across the United States.
The focus of the research is THC-infused seltzer, but More Better says it will also investigate 750 milliliter bottles used as mixers, dry powder mixes, and 1.5 to 2 ounce shots in an effort to study how various doses and form factors impact consumers' perceived experiences.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, Aaron Noshbush, founder and CEO at Brett, says, "Our mission has always been to provide a healthier, more mindful way to enjoy social moments. And we believe this study will help us better understand and validate the positive impact of our product."
Evan Enman, CEO and co-founder of Iconic Tonics, says this pioneering study reflects our commitment at Iconic Tonics to reshape the future of adult beverages, delivering functional, flavorful, and elevated alternatives that meet the moment. As more consumers explore mindful options, real-world data like this will be essential in understanding how THC-infused beverages are enhancing quality of life and transforming social rituals. Our partnership with More Better isn't just about validating our brands. It's about leading a cultural shift with integrity, innovation, and style. The press release notes that the study comes at a critical time as alcohol sales are experiencing a decline and as consumers are increasingly curious about trying better for you alcohol alternatives.
Announcement of the research project also comes as the alcohol as well as hemp and cannabis industries closely watch consumers' behavior around cannabinoids and alcohol. A report from Bloomberg Intelligence last year called cannabis a significant threat to the alcohol industry, citing survey data that suggests more people are using cannabis as a substitute for alcohol beverages such as beer and wine.
100%.
Mhm.
The report projected that slumping sales of wine and spirits may extend indefinitely, which will stem largely from the increased consumer access to legal cannabis and other alternative products. Nobody wants to get hungover anymore.
Yeah.
The use of cannabis among consumers is on the rise, and we believe it's being substituted for alcoholic beverages, BI analysis wrote. We also anticipate that increasing U.S. consumer access to recreational cannabis will be a significant threat to all alcoholic drinks, particularly beer and wine, given their lower price points relative to liquor.
And last November, meanwhile, a beer industry trade group put out a statement of guiding principles to address what it called the proliferation of largely unregulated intoxicating hemp and cannabis products, warning of risks to consumers and communities resulting from THC consumption. Now, the Beer Institute advised in the document that lawmakers impose a federal excise tax on hemp and cannabis products, with the tax rate set higher than the highest rate of any alcohol or beverage alcohol product.
Reefer Madness 2.0. Instead of being fueled by the cotton and paper industries, it's going to be fueled by the alcohol industry. Yeah. Earlier last year, the Wine and Spirits Wholesaler of America, WSWA, called on Congress to create a regulatory framework for hemp-based intoxicating cannabinoids rather than impose an outright ban, as was being proposed at the time. We strongly advocate for clear federal rules and regulations that define intoxicating hemp compounds and to grant states the authority to regulate these products within their borders, the Alcohol Trade Association said.
Mm-hmm. Growing evidence suggests that frequent cannabis use is now more common among Americans than regular alcohol use. A recent study found that more Americans consume cannabis every day than drink alcohol on a daily basis. Since 1992, the per capita rate of daily cannabis consumption in the country has increased nearly 15 times over.
Wow. A multinational investment bank said in a 2023 report that cannabis has become a formidable competitor to alcohol, projecting that nearly 20 million more people will regularly consume cannabis over the next 5 years as booze loses a couple of million drinkers. Cannabis sales are estimated to reach $37 billion in 2027. In the U.S., it said, as more states' markets come online. A separate study out of Canada, where cannabis is federally legal, found that legalization was associated with a decline in beer sales, suggesting a substitution effect. Wait till psilocybin's on the market.
Yeah. Data from the Gallup survey published in August of last year also found that Americans consider cannabis to be less harmful than alcohol, cigarettes, vapes, and other tobacco products. As for hemp-derived cannabinoids, a hemp industry expert told congressional lawmakers earlier this week that the market is begging for federal regulations around cannabis products.
At the hearing, Representative James Comer also inquired about the U.S. Food and Drug Administration inaction around regulations, sarcastically asking if it'd require a gazillion bureaucrats that work from home to regulate the cannabinoids such as CBD. In the absence of FDA rules, states from California to Florida have pushed for sweeping changes to their own laws around consumable hemp products, while much of the focus has been on intoxicating products. Federally legal CBD businesses have also found themselves increasingly in the crosshairs.
Meanwhile, as lawmakers prepare to once again take up large-scale agricultural legislation this session, congressional researchers in January provided all the overview of the policy landscape around hemp, emphasizing the divides around various cannabis-related proposals among legislators, stakeholders, and advocates. Senate Democrats released a long-awaited draft of the 2024 Farm Bill last year that contained several proposed changes to federal hemp laws, including provisions to amend how the legal limit of THC is measured, and reducing regulatory barriers for farmers who grow the crop for grain or fiber. But certain stakeholders had expressed concern that part of the intent of the legislation was to eliminate a whole range of products that are now sold in the market.
For the time being, the hemp industry continues to face unique regulatory hurdles that stakeholders blame for the crop's value plummeting in the short years since its legalization. Despite the economic conditions, however, a recent report found that the hemp market in 2022 was larger than all state cannabis markets, and it roughly equals sales for craft beer nationally.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, who wants that job of testing those beverages? Yeah, it'd be good. I think I'd enjoy that. The only problem is I have to avoid the carbonated drinks.
Yeah, and it seems like they're looking for people who use both cannabis and alcohol for that study.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I noticed throughout. That way they can compare things. So. Yeah. Alrighty, last story before we go to break.
Coming to us from International Cannabis Business Conference, vaporized cannabis provides significant improvements for MS patients.
All right. Cannabis consumption has evolved in recent decades. For many years, cannabis was typically eaten, or it was combusted with the flame and the resulting smoke was inhaled. These days, cannabis is vaporized by more and more medical cannabis patients for various reasons. According to SNS researchers, the cannabis vape market was valued at $5.06 billion US in 2023 and is expected to grow to $17.1 billion US by 2032 at a CAGR of 14.5% over the forecast period of 2024-2032.
Researchers in Greece recently conducted a study involving vaporized medical cannabis and multiple sclerosis patients. And we're going to go into more information about the study and its results via a news release from Normal. In Athens, Greece, vaporized cannabis containing, standardized percentages of CBD and THC is associated with sustained improvements in patients with MS, according to a longitudinal data published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine.
Greek researchers assessed the efficacy of a vaporized cannabis formulation containing 13% CBD and 9% THC in a cohort of 69 MS patients. Study participants' symptoms included bladder dysfunction, muscle spasticity, and disability progression rate were assessed at baseline at 3 months and 6 months. Significant improvement was observed across all outcome assessments following patients' adjunctive use of cannabis, researchers reported.
This study represents an initial step forward towards understanding the real-world application of vaporized THC and CBD formulations, specifically in MS management. The study's authors concluded the findings highlight the potential benefits of CBD, THC at 13 and 9% respectively, vaporized formulations in managing MS symptoms, particularly when integrated into the existing treatment framework of DMTs, disease-modifying therapies, not what I do, and MS symptomatic therapies. In 2010, British health officials granted regulatory approval to an oromuscular spray containing standardized percentages of CBD and THC for the treatment of MS. That product is now available by prescription in various countries, including Canada, Germany, Israel, Japan, Spain, but remains unavailable in the United States.
Not surprised there. Not available in the United States.
Yeah.
Not surprised at all. All righty. Well, that's our first half. We got 4 more stories to come after the break. And talking about break, we'll be right back after our joint session. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
All right, we're back. We're live. We got 4 more stories to cover, and here we go.
Yes, coming to us from Healing Maps. There's a study. More than a third of Canadian cities have magic mushroom dispensaries.
Yeah. More than 1/3 of Canadian cities now have at least one storefront selling psilocybin mushrooms, according to a new study from the University of BC. The research marks the first formal study of its kind and suggests a sharp rise in open psilocybin retail, despite federal laws that continue to prohibit the substance. And here are some of the takeaways. This is number of cities with dispensaries: 48 cities out of 162. Province with the highest concentration, British Columbia. They have 25 stores in Vancouver alone. Go ahead.
Yeah, common marketing terms used: mushrooms dispensaries, wellness stores, microdosing shops. They're still illegal under federal law, but tolerated in some cities. Enforcement trends: uneven law enforcement and growing municipal leniency across the country. And even then, in some areas, they seem to pick and choose who they're going to pick on.
Yeah, and it sounds a lot like the cannabis stuff. Uneven law enforcement, and that was one of the reasons why they legalized cannabis.
Yeah,
because it was unevenly, enforced across the country.
Yeah. We can see the similarities in what's going on with both substances for sure. Yeah. Psilocybin remains a controlled substance here in Canada, yet dispensaries are opening in major cities from coast to coast. Vancouver leads the country with an estimated 25 shops. Toronto and Ottawa follow with 11 and 9 respectively. The study's authors noted that storefronts tend to mark their products as part of a larger wellness movement using terms like microdosing and natural medicine.
Researchers found that nearly 30% of the dispensaries surveyed promoted psilocybin as a way to improve mental health. They often linked it to anxiety relief and depression treatment. While scientific interest in psychedelics has grown in recent years, Health Canada has not approved psilocybin for general use outside of clinical settings. And let's also say that Health Canada has not approved cannabis as a medical thing either.
Still.
Still.
So they have a medical cannabis program, but they still have not stood behind that program. They tolerate it, but they don't stand behind it.
Yeah, courts forced them to do it, right? So.
Yeah.
Now, the rise in retail sales puts pressure on local and federal governments. Some cities appear to be looking the other way. Others, like Winnipeg and Regina, have cracked down on the shops and enforced federal rules. In places like Vancouver and Toronto, however, enforcement remains rare.
What explains the uneven response? Some experts believe that the growing public interest in alternative mental health treatments is outpacing policy. No shit, Sherlock. Sorry. Others point to the precedent set by cannabis dispensaries, many of which operated illegally, in the legacy market before the federal government legalized recreational cannabis in 2018. For now, the legal future of psilocybin dispensaries remains uncertain. Lawmakers have yet to take a coordinated stance. As cities weigh the public health risks and the potential benefits, storefronts continue to operate. The growing gap between legal restrictions and retail behavior raises new questions for public health and criminal law. Whether a shift in national drug policy will follow remains to be seen.
Yeah. See what happens down the road, right?
Yep.
And you just never know. So many people are finding a benefit with it that, why not? Yeah,
I've noticed that, I watched this with cannabis when we were going through it, and people got curious. I find, and some started using as they knew legalization was coming. They started researching. Some waited until October 17th, 2018 to actually, but I find the same trends with psilocybin on a much larger scale. I find that a lot of people that waited till October 17th, 2018 are now watching psilocybin and getting on board way ahead of time. Like they're not waiting for legalization. They saw the benefits when cannabis came in, and it's made them realize that maybe they were looking the wrong way their whole lives.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty. Talking about stories and stuff, let's bust some myths with our next story.
Coming to us from cannabis.net. Cannabis myth buster. We need more research. The fallback excuse not backed by facts.
How often do we hear that when we do stories? We need more research. Yes, marijuana myth busters. We need more research. Yeah, right. If I had $1 for every time a politician uttered these words about cannabis, I'd probably have enough money to fund several lifetimes of research. It's become a go-to response whenever the topic of legalization comes up, a convenient way to kick the can down the road while appearing thoughtful and responsible.
I want to go to one of these things with all the research. But here's what keeps me up at night. How much research is enough? How much?
Yeah. How much? Yeah.
We currently have over 28,000 studies, 28,000 in one country alone on cannabis, spanning decades of significant inquiry. That's not counting the thousands of years of documented human use dating back to some of humanity's earliest agriculture endeavors. Cannabis wasn't just any crop. It was the first plants our ancestors chose to cultivate. Think about that for just a moment. Yet somehow in 2024, we're still being told we need more research before we can definitively say that cannabis is safer than alcohol. Oh my God, a substance that claims tens of thousands of lives annually, yearly, every year in 365 days, tens of thousands of lives. It's as if we're stuck in an endless loop of studying while ignoring the mountain of evidence at our disposal.
Today, I'm going to help you cut through the smokescreen of perpetual research requirements. We'll look at the numbers, examine the facts, and hopefully put this tired old excuse to rest once and for all. Because, let's be honest, if we haven't gathered enough data after thousands of years of human use and tens of thousands of scientific studies, then we never will. Buckle up, folks. It's time to bust this myth wide open.
I love this story already, and we're only just starting it. Let's talk numbers because the figures are absolutely staggering. According to Normal's recent analysis of PubMed.gov data, scientists have published over 35,000 scientific papers about cannabis just since 2014. So in 10 years, and that's not a typo, 35,000 studies in the past decade alone. To put this in perspective, we're seeing over 4,000 new cannabis studies published every year. This means by the time you finish reading this article, another researcher somewhere has probably published their findings about our favorite plant. The pace of cannabis research isn't just steady, it's exploding.
As Normal's Deputy Director Paul Armorano perfectly puts it, it's time for politicians and others to stop assessing cannabis through the lens of what we don't know, instead start engaging in evidence-based discussions about cannabis and cannabis reform policies that are indicative of all that we do know. Here's a mind-blowing statistic, they say. Over 70% of all peer-reviewed scientific papers about cannabis have been published in just the last 10 years. We're talking about the most intensively studied plant in modern history, with PubMed.gov now hosting over 49,500 scientific papers on cannabis dating back to the 1840s.
Wow. And what have all these studies taught us? Well, we know with certainty that cannabis is significantly safer than alcohol and tobacco, two perfectly legal substances that claim hundreds of thousands of lives every year. We know it's less dangerous than virtually every other substance listed in the Controlled Substance Act. We know it has legitimate medical applications. That's not up for debate anymore. And we know its addiction potential is comparable to coffee, not heroin, despite what its Schedule 1 status might suggest. So when I hear politicians trot out the tired old line about needing more research, I can't help but feel my blood pressure rise. It's not just a cop-out, it's an insult to the thousands of researchers who have now dedicated their careers to understanding this plant. We have more than enough scientific evidence to, create sensible, evidence-based cannabis policies right now.
Let's be real. Continuing to hide behind the "we need more research" smokescreen isn't about science. It's about politics. Yes, there will always be more to learn about cannabis, just like there's always more to learn about any subject. But we know enough, more than enough, to move forward with full legalization and smart regulation. The next time someone tells you we need more research before we can legalize cannabis, ask them how many studies would be enough. Then watch them squirm as they try to justify ignoring the mountain of evidence we already have.
Yeah. While our modern scientists continue to churn out studies about cannabis, there's another critical piece of evidence that prohibitionists conveniently ignore: humanity's thousands of years of direct experience with this remarkable plant. In fact, when you look at human history, cannabis prohibition stands out as the unnatural anomaly, a brief but destructive departure from our long-standing relationship with this plant. Let's talk timeline. The earliest evidence of human cannabis use dates back to around 8,000 BCE in Asia, where it was one of the first plants cultivated for fiber, food, and medicine. That's 10,000 years of documented human use. The ancient Chinese pharmacopoeia, the Pentao Ching, dating back to 2700 BCE, specifically referenced cannabis as a medicine for treating a variety of ailments. Queen Victoria famously used cannabis tinctures for menstrual cramps, and even George Washington grew hemp at Mount Vernon.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Our bodies actually evolved alongside this plant. The discovery of the endocannabinoid system reveals we have an entire network of receptors that interact with cannabis compounds. Whether you believe in intelligent design or evolution, you have to acknowledge the remarkable symmetry here. We literally have a biological system that responds to cannabis. That's not coincidence, folks. Every major civilization throughout history has documented beneficial uses of cannabis. It appeared in the United States Pharmacopoeia from 1850 until 1942, recognized for its therapeutic properties in treating numerous conditions. Ancient Egyptians used it for glaucoma, Indians for digestive issues, and Chinese doctors described it for more than over 100 ailments. This is an ancient superstition. Many of these applications are being validated by modern research.
So, what happened? In 1937, against the advice of the American Medical Association, cannabis was effectively banned in the United States. This kicked off our grand experiment with prohibition, an 87-year detour that has brought nothing but suffering, incarceration, and death. The only beneficiaries have been the pharmaceutical companies, private prisons, and law enforcement agencies who've built empires around cannabis criminalization. Let's put this in perspective. We have 10,000 years of documented beneficial use versus 87 years of prohibition-induced chaos. When someone claims, we don't know enough about cannabis, they're not just ignoring modern science, they're dismissing a millennia of human experience.
Next time someone tries to tell you we need more research, remind them that cannabis has been extensively studied, not just in laboratories, but in the real world, across countless cultures, over thousands of years. The evidence isn't just in peer-reviewed journals. It's written in the history of human civilization itself. We don't have enough knowledge. We don't have a knowledge gap about cannabis. We have an honesty gap among politicians who refuse to acknowledge what we already know.
Yeah. After diving deep into the mountain of evidence surrounding cannabis, from over 35,000 recent scientific studies to millennia of documented human use, one thing becomes crystal clear. Claiming we need more research is nothing but a smokescreen for maintaining prohibition. I'm writing this article to arm you with knowledge, to inoculate you against the virus of prohibition that has infected our political discourse for far too long. The next time someone regurgitates the "we need more research" talking point, you can confidently counter with facts. We have tens of thousands of modern studies, thousands of years of documented use, and an actual biological system in our bodies designed to interact with this plant.
Those still clinging to prohibitionist views aren't just uninformed. They're actually choosing to ignore a vast body of evidence. It's like standing in a library and claiming books don't exist. It's true. The only explanation for such willful ignorance is the powerful influence of special interests who profit from keeping cannabis illegal. Big pharma, private prisons, and certain law enforcement agencies have built empires on the foundation of prohibition, and they're not about to let facts get in the way of their profits. Here's the ultimate irony. While our government was floating the idea of a ministry of truth to combat misinformation, they've been one of the primary sources of cannabis disinformation for nearly a decade. From reefer madness to modern-day fear-mongering about the dangers of cannabis, they've consistently ignored science, dismissed the history, and perpetual lies to maintain their prohibitionist stance.
It's time to call out this hypocrisy. It's time to shut down bad faith arguments about needing more research with the overwhelming evidence we already have. The truth is, we don't need more research to know that prohibition has failed. We need more courage from our politicians to stand up to special interests and implement evidence-based policies. So the next time someone tells you we need more research on cannabis, ask them, how many studies would be enough? How many years of human use would satisfy you? How much evidence do you need to acknowledge what we already know? Then watch as they struggle to defend the indefensible.
Oh yeah. The sticky bottom line is this. We have the evidence. We have the science. We have the history. What we need now is the political will to act on it, and that, my friends, starts with refusing to let tired old myths about needing more research go unchallenged. Knowledge is power, and it's time we use the power to end prohibition once and for all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this can be said about so many of these earth medicines that we use. Like, I mean, iboga is one of them. Like, I mean, for thousands of years in Africa, it's been used, and now it's criminalized around the world.
Yeah.
Psilocybin is the same way. I mean, like peyote. I mean, we could have a big old list that, you know, replace one word with the other. And this article, you know, very smart. Very
Yeah.
good. Well, good morning, Gordo.
Yeah. Good morning, Gordo. Good morning. See your message there. All righty. Moving on to the next story. As I get it ready here. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Coming to us from the business of cannabis, Israel's 165% tariffs on Canadian cannabis imports approved by Ministry of Health.
165%. Israel has seemingly followed the footsteps of its U.S. ally this week after announcing plans to impose 165% tariffs on cannabis imports from Canada. The state's Ministry of Economy, spearheaded by the Ministry of Economy and the Industry, Barrett, announced this week that it planned to go ahead with the proposed levies against Canadian cannabis imports amid ongoing accusations of product dumping.
In early 2024, Business of Cannabis reported that the ministry had launched an investigation into its domestic cannabis market following numerous complaints from local producers that they were struggling to compete on price with Canadian imports. The investigation was launched in January, and a preliminary decision was published in July, revealing plans to impose severe tariffs on Canadian imports.
In the 126-page final report published in November, fees starting as low as 2% for distillable cannabis, 33% for village farms, as pure sun farms, 39% for organogram, 77% for Tilray was proposed. All other companies would face a levy of up to 175%. While the proposal still requires sign-off from the finance minister Bezalel Smotrich and Knesset Finance Committee, it enjoys strong support from local producers who claim the influx of cheap imports has disseminated their margins and forced sales below cost.
Should the levy be approved, it will be applied over 4 years, a reduction from initial suggestions of a 5-year tariff. While most Canadian producers will face the full 165% rate, a handful of companies, including Decibel, Village Farms, Organigram, and Tilray, will be subject to lower duties. These companies, however, have already scaled back or halted exports to Israel, meaning the vast majority of imports currently entering the market would be subject to the full levy if enacted.
Mike Gorenstein, CEO of the Canadian cannabis operator Cronos, told Business of Cannabis, "We are deeply disappointed by the decision. The imposition of these tariffs will negatively impact Israel's medical cannabis patients who benefit from competitive pricing and product diversity. Such tariffs will limit patients' access to a variety of high-quality cannabis products which are crucial for their health needs. As an Israeli business, we have invested significantly in our operations since 2018 and remain committed to delivering value. This decision undermines innovation, competition, and access for those who need it most."
Speaking to StratCan in November of 24, Canadian Cannabis Council President Paul McCarthy said it was impossible to ascertain how any of these decisions were made, adding that there were major concerns over inconsistent comparisons between retail, wholesale, and bulk prices. C3's submission to the Israeli government revealed that the average price of bulk cannabis flowers in Canada is approximately 96 cents per gram, according to data from the Canadian Cannabis Exchange. So why am I paying $10 a gram at the liquor store?
I gotta think that's $96 per gram would have to be on the wholesale end, because we just had a report the other day that said it was $2 and change.
Yep.
Yeah. In response to the Israel's Ministry of Economy dismissed this figure, stating it represents low quality products not comparable to those sold in Israel. McCarthy countered that this distinction is unfounded, emphasizing the need for a proper apples to apples comparison. Canadian opposition to the levy was backed by former Israel National Economic Council head Professor Eugene Cadell, who argued that the methodology used to calculate the dumping margin was flawed.
The move has also drawn opposition internally, with the Minister of Health and the Israel Competition Authority both publicly opposing the levy, warning of negative consequences for patients and market integrity. Health officials argue the move could drive up costs, reduce product diversity, and erode access.
Could increase costs. I would say will increase costs at 165%. I can't see the companies just absorbing that.
Mm.
Right? I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. To our last story of the day. Here we go.
Coming to us from neurosciencenews.com, using cannabis while drinking may lead to riskier behavior.
In a quick summary, it says young adults often use alcohol and cannabis together, a behavior that may dull the perceived negative effects of drinking and increase the risk of alcohol-related harm. A recent study found that simultaneous use can reduce users' awareness of alcohol's effects, potentially leading to alcohol use disorder and dangerous behaviors like drunk driving. And using real-time surveys via smartphones, researchers gathered thousands of data points reflecting participants' substance use and emotions during daily life. These insights can help improve treatment and prevention strategies by identifying psychological factors that reinforce stimulus use.
Key facts are diminished awareness. Cannabis may blunt awareness of alcohol's negative effects. Real-time data. Participants report substance use and feelings multiple times per week. And treatment implications. Understanding user motivations may guide more effective interventions. Many young adults drink alcohol and use cannabis together at the same time as a coping mechanism or to relieve stress.
A recent study from the University of Missouri School of Medicine found that people who may perceive fewer negative effects of alcohol if they are also using cannabis at the same time, potentially leading to alcohol use disorder, alcohol-related harms, and drunk driving. Given how frequently people use cannabis and drink, it's important to understand what drives simultaneous use and what its ramifications can be. The study author, Andrea Wolkoff, says.
Studying the coping mechanisms and motivations of people most at risk for heavy use will help make substance use treatment more effective, she said. It may also help with prevention efforts when talking to high-risk individuals or populations. Wyckoff's team examined 6,334 data entries from a sample of 88 adults. Participants were prompted to fill out multiple surveys per day via a notification on their phone that asked about their substance use.
If they recently drank or used cannabis, they would complete the follow-up surveys asking how they felt. These surveys were completed in real time during the person's day-to-day life, Wyckoff says.
Yeah, this minimized the presence of data where people didn't remember or misremember how they felt, which can give us a lot of insight about how simultaneous use unfolds in everyday life. The adverse health effects of alcohol are well documented. Excessive drinking can lead to liver damage or failure, heart strain or damage, and various other issues, including a heightened risk of cancer.
Heavy cannabis use also has adverse health consequences, especially with prolonged use starting in adolescence. Examples include cognitive impairment, impaired motor skills, altered brain development, lung damage from smoking, addiction, and mental illness.
You did better reading that than I would have. I would have had all kinds of...
More research is needed. Hey, there. There we go. Really? Determining the extent of potential positive and negative effects of cannabis, but further research should also focus on understanding the psychological processes that reinforce stimulus use, according to Wyckoff.
Research studies should include people seeking treatment for substance use, as they are one of the main groups that we are hoping to help with our research efforts. Andrea Wyckoff, PhD, is an assistant professor of psychiatry at the School of Medicine.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Done. That story is over. All right. Anything you want to mention about the story?
I don't think so.
More research?
More research. More research is always needed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they say. That's what they tell us. All right. Anything before we say goodbye?
Have a great week, folks. That's about it.
That's about it. All right. That's a report for today. Thanks to our buds at Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, At-Eze.ca, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.